Hey guys, before we dive into this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. My name is Jason, I'm 32, and I'm just a regular guy, an engineer who likes to ride his motorcycle late at night to clear his head. I never thought I'd end up telling this story, not to anyone, not even my closest friends, but here I am. It all started on a Thursday night, the kind of night where the air feels heavier and every shadow seems just a little too alive. I had decided to take my bike out for a long ride along the back roads outside the city, the ones where there's barely any light except for the moon and the headlights cutting through the dark. I was about 30 miles out when I first saw it. A light hovering, not moving like a plane or helicopter, not blinking like a satellite. Just there. Pale blue, almost metallic, but not bright enough to illuminate the fields around it. I stopped, thinking maybe it was a reflection or my eyes playing tricks. But then it moved. Not slowly, not the way a drone might drift. It darted, and when it did, I felt this unnatural vibration in my chest, like the air itself was responding to it. My first instinct was fear. My second instinct was curiosity, because who wouldn't be curious about something that defies explanation? I kicked the bike into gear and followed it at a cautious distance. The road was empty, straight, and silent except for the hum of the engine. The light seemed to be aware of me, adjusting its position, staying just ahead, sometimes vanishing behind hills only to appear again. After about 15 minutes, I realized I wasn't following it anymore. It was following me. That's when the panic hit. I sped up, the tires gripping the asphalt harder than I'd ever felt. I glanced over my shoulder, expecting to see a police car or another vehicle, but nothing. Just that light, floating, patient, waiting. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe some kind of experimental drone, maybe a helicopter I hadn't heard, but nothing fit. The way it moved, the precision, the sudden drops and climbs, it wasn't human-made. My heart was hammering. I tried to call someone, anyone, but the signal kept dropping. My phone screen flickered and then went black. The road seemed longer than it had been moments ago, as if I had entered some kind of loop. Then came the sound, or rather, the absence of it. No wind, no engine, just silence around me except for this low, pulsing hum that I could feel in my bones. That's when I saw it clearly. It was not small, not even close. The craft was huge, triangular, with edges that reflected the moonlight in ways that made it hard to look at directly. There were no windows, no markings, nothing human. And it was moving with me, faster. I tried to escape, taking turns, weaving through the sparse trees lining the road, but every time I thought I'd lost it, it would reappear, hovering above the next ridge. My mind started racing through all the stories I'd scoffed at. Alien abductions, strange lights, disappearing hikers. I never thought those were real, but now, screaming into the empty night, I had no choice but to consider the impossible. And then it happened. A beam, white, cutting through the darkness, hitting the road in front of me. I slammed on the brakes, the bike skidding on gravel, and before I could even react, it lifted me off the ground. Not violently, not like some movie scene, but effortlessly, weightless, as if gravity no longer applied. I was in the air, staring at the ground below, the bike still clinging to my legs, and the craft above me. Immense, silent, observing. And then, just as suddenly as I was lifted, the beam retracted, and I found myself inside a chamber. I couldn't see much. The walls glowed faintly with shifting colors that made me dizzy. A soft vibration hummed through the floor, and I realized I wasn't alone. Figures, humanoid but wrong. Slender, gray, without facial features as we know them. Eyes glowing faintly, moving around me with an intelligence that chilled me to the bone. I tried to speak, to ask them where I was, but no sound came out. A calm, almost telepathic presence filled the room. They didn't speak. They communicated by thought, by presence. And then I understood this wasn't random. They had been tracking me, studying me, testing my reactions. The fear, the panic, the instinct to flee. They wanted to see it all. My body wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. And then a realization hit me. This was not just observation. Whatever was happening next, I had no control. I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't hallucinating. And that's when the chamber began to shift, the walls stretching and bending, and I realized the journey I was on was just beginning. The chamber seemed endless, like staring into a tunnel of light and shadow that warped around me. The figures, the aliens, whatever they were, moved with purpose, their limbs bending in ways no humans ever could. I tried to calm my breathing, to think logically, but my mind was a whirlwind of panic and disbelief. Suddenly, one of them approached me, taller than the rest, and stopped just a foot away. I could feel its presence, not threatening, but deeply analytical, as if it was scanning every neuron in my brain. My heart hammered, but I forced myself to focus. And then it happened. An image, a memory, a vision flooded my mind. I saw my childhood home, my little sister, the first time I rode my bike down the street. Then flashes of moments I hadn't thought about in years, friends, mistakes, fears, all compressed into seconds. I stumbled backward, overwhelmed. It was as if they were trying to understand me, my psyche, my very essence. I realized they weren't just observing. They were recording, cataloging, studying humanity through me. I wanted to fight, to scream, to run, but my body refused. Every instinct I had was paralyzed by something I couldn't see. Then one of them, maybe the leader, reached toward me. Not violently, but a gentle gesture that triggered a strange compulsion. I felt my limbs move against my will, following its lead. We moved through corridors that twisted impossibly, walls glowing with colors my eyes couldn't name. I caught glimpses of other beings similar to me, or at least human-shaped, lying in tubes, unconscious, connected to machines. Panic surged again. "I'm not a lab rat," I shouted mentally, willing them to hear my fear. And somehow they did. The taller one paused, and I sensed curiosity. They didn't communicate in words, but I understood a message. "You are different. We need to see further." I had no idea what different meant, but I felt the weight of it, as if the entire purpose of my existence in this chamber had been defined in that moment. Hours, or maybe minutes, I had no frame of reference. Passed. Time seemed meaningless. They probed my mind further, and I was forced to relive memories I'd buried, dreams I'd given up on, even thoughts I hadn't realized I had. And then, for the first time, I felt fear morph into something else. A strange sense of calm, a realization that they weren't necessarily hostile, just alien, other. I could see flashes of stars, galaxies, visions of worlds spinning far beyond human reach. Knowledge, understanding, the magnitude of what I was seeing nearly broke me. But then it hit me. They were showing me possibilities. My mind spun with concepts too vast, too complex. And I realized something terrifying. They were testing me, but not just my fear. They were testing my mind, my reactions, my capacity to adapt. I wanted to resist, to close myself off, but each vision pulled me further, deeper. And then, without warning, I was back in the main chamber. The beam had retracted, and I was on a platform that seemed to hover above darkness. Below, I could barely make out the earth, my home, spinning slowly, impossibly far. The figures surrounded me, and I felt an overwhelming sense of anticipation, as if a decision was about to be made. One of them projected an image, a sequence of symbols, shapes that my mind tried to interpret. And I understood. They were offering me a choice. Stay, learn, become something beyond human, or return. Return to my life, but with the knowledge that something out there, far beyond comprehension, had marked me. My stomach churned. The thought of leaving, of going back to the life I'd taken for granted, terrified me almost as much as staying. What would they do to me if I refused? Would I ever see my home again? My family? My friends? And yet, the other thought, curiosity, the irresistible pull of the unknown, whispered in my mind. I took a step forward, trembling, and the taller one extended a limb, touching my forehead. A surge of information hit me. Coordinates, warnings, histories of encounters, some disastrous, some benevolent. My mind reeled, the weight of comprehension pressing on me like gravity multiplied. I stumbled backward, gasping, overwhelmed by knowledge I wasn't ready to process. And then, in a moment I'll never forget, the chamber shifted again. Suddenly, I was in a familiar place, the road where it all began. My bike was on the asphalt, intact. The night was still eerily calm. And above me, a faint blue light blinked once, then vanished into the void. I collapsed, shaking, unable to comprehend what had just happened. But I was alive, and alone, or so I thought, because when I looked down at my wrist, there was a mark, subtle, almost imperceptible, a faint iridescent scar that pulsed softly. I touched it, and immediately a memory of the chamber, the visions, the beings, it all came rushing back. I realized then that I had been changed, in ways I couldn't explain, and that whatever had followed me, studied me, and finally let me go, it wasn't finished. I thought that being back on the road meant it was over, but the moment I mounted my bike and started riding, I realized I had never been more wrong. The night air carried a strange vibration, like the hum from before, just under the threshold of hearing. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, the adrenaline leaving traces of panic, but then the light appeared again. Not distant this time, but closer, trailing me like a predator shadowing its prey. My pulse spiked. I gunned the engine, tires spinning on the asphalt, heart pounding in sync with the hum that now reverberated through my chest. Every instinct screamed to turn, to hide, but no place nearby would shield me. Forests on either side were thick, and every tree seemed to reach for me, though I could barely see them in the faint moonlight. I glanced at the sky. Stars were visible, but one point of unnatural brightness moved independently, accelerating and decelerating without pattern. My breath caught. I realized I wasn't running from a plane or drone. I was being hunted, and not just observed, hunted. Panic made my vision tunnel. I remembered the mark on my wrist, glowing faintly now. It pulsed with every beat of the hum, like a heartbeat of its own. Was it tracking me? Or was it a warning? I didn't have time to analyze. The light darted lower, skimming over the road, and I saw shapes within it. The same humanoid figures, but now in full pursuit. My mind screamed. I could push the bike to its limit, but how far would that get me against beings that could appear and vanish at will? I swerved around a curve, tires screeching, adrenaline burning my veins. Every turn I took, they anticipated. The road twisted into hills, then straightened, and always there they were. The closer they came, the more I noticed details. Translucent limbs, glowing veins, eyes that seemed to pierce into my soul. And a thought struck me. They weren't trying to abduct me this time. They were testing me, testing my endurance, my fear response, my decision-making under pressure. Every maneuver I made, every choice was being analyzed, recorded. My mind raced with questions. Why me? What had they seen in me that warranted this relentless pursuit? And then I realized, the knowledge they had implanted, the visions, the memories had changed something inside me. I could anticipate their movements almost subconsciously, the way a prey animal senses a predator. I leaned into that instinct, weaving between trees and over hills, following patterns that somehow emerged in my mind. But the chase was relentless. Hours must have passed. I couldn't tell. The road blurred beneath me. My eyes were burning, sweat mixing with tears. And yet, the hum persisted, a constant reminder that I was not alone, that the beings were still with me, still pushing me. Then it happened, the impossible. The light split, 2 points now, approaching from different directions. Panic surged anew. There was no way to outrun both, and yet, instinctively, I veered toward a narrow pass, weaving between jagged rocks. The taller figure from the chamber appeared ahead, blocking my path. My chest tightened. I slammed on the brakes, skidding to a stop mere feet away. His head tilted, and in that moment I understood it wasn't trying to kill me. It wanted to push me to see how far I would go, how much I could endure. My body trembled. My mind screamed for reason, but every rational thought had fled. And then, in a flash of insight, I realized something. If I stopped fearing them, if I acted with calm instead of panic, I could change the rules of this chase. I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and let the fear fall away. The hum shifted, almost as if reacting to my mental state. The figures froze, momentarily uncertain. My heart pounded, but I rode forward with purpose, not fleeing, not panicked, but assertive, commanding the road and the night. The taller one stepped aside, and I passed, adrenaline still coursing but with a newfound clarity. They weren't omnipotent. They were calculating, yes, but they were also limited, bound by rules I could exploit. I rode until the first signs of dawn, until the pale light of morning began to wash the road. The pursuit slackened, the hum fading with each mile, but the mark on my wrist pulsed, reminding me that I hadn't escaped. I had survived, but the connection remained. And in that connection was a promise or a warning. They would come again, and next time I wouldn't just be tested. I would be chosen. I stopped by a roadside diner, trembling, hands shaking, eyes scanning the sky. A waitress brought coffee, oblivious to my state. I forced a smile, muttering a thanks I barely heard. Outside, the day was ordinary, but I knew better. Somewhere out there, beyond the clouds, they watched. And one day they would return, and I would have to be ready. By the time night fell again, I knew I hadn't truly escaped. The hum returned, faint at first, teasing the edge of perception, then growing louder, vibrating through my chest like a drum. I tried to convince myself I was imagining it, that the daylight had dulled my senses, but deep down, I knew better. I wasn't alone. They were coming back. And this time it wasn't just a chase. It was a reckoning. I had spent the day preparing, reading everything I could find about sightings, disappearances, alien phenomena, but nothing could have prepared me for what I felt crawling over my skin as I mounted the bike and returned to the roads where it all began. The air was different, charged, almost alive. I could see their lights in the distance before I even reached the first curve. Multiple points of pale blue, moving with precision, synchronized, like hunters surrounding prey. My heart thumped violently, but I forced myself to breathe, to think. I remembered the lesson from the last chase. Fear gives them power. Calm, purpose, clarity, that was my weapon. I pushed the bike faster than I ever had, weaving, accelerating, but unlike before, I wasn't running blindly. I analyzed their movements, predicted their positions, shifted patterns almost instinctively. The taller one appeared ahead, waiting, but this time, I didn't veer around or panic. I rode straight toward it, steady, controlled, letting the intuition they had seeded in me guide my path. As I approached, the hum intensified, and the world seemed to bend, the road stretching impossibly beneath me. Suddenly, the light enveloped me, not painfully, not violently, but fully. I felt weightless again, my body suspended between fear and comprehension. Inside the chamber this time, it was different. The walls pulsed with color, shifting faster, more vivid, almost alive. The figures surrounded me, but there was no aggression. The taller one stepped forward, placing a hand near my forehead. And then, without words, the choice was presented, clearer than ever. Stay, become something beyond human. See the universe as they do, leave Earth behind forever, or return to my life. Carry the mark, carry the memory, and live knowing what exists beyond. Forever changed. I swallowed, heart hammering. I thought of my family, friends, the life I'd almost taken for granted. I thought of the freedom I'd felt on my bike, the quiet moments of night driving when the world was mine. And I realized, no knowledge, no power, no alien enlightenment could replace the life I had fought to preserve. I raised my hand steady and said, not aloud, but in thought, feeling it resonate with the chamber. I choose to return. The taller figure paused, as if surprised, or maybe respecting my resolve. A gentle pressure pressed against my forehead, a wave of understanding and energy flowing through me, more intense than fear, more profound than pain. Then the chamber dissolved. I was back on the road, dawn breaking over the horizon. My bike was intact. The mark on my wrist pulsed softly, a reminder, not a warning. I had survived. And yet, something had shifted. I could feel it in my mind. A connection, subtle, faint, like a whisper of awareness. I wasn't the same person anymore. I rode for hours, every glance at the sky searching for the blue lights that had haunted me, every instinct on edge, knowing they were out there, watching. And in that knowledge was both terror and strange comfort. They had tested me and I had endured. But the universe was bigger, darker, more alive than I'd ever imagined. Life returned to a semblance of normality. Friends, work, the city's hum, but I couldn't shake the memories, the visions, the chamber, the beings. Sometimes at night, I feel the hum beneath my skin again, the faint pull of something vast and unknowable. And I know that if I'm not careful, if I let fear rule me, they will come again. But I also know this: I survived and I am ready. Whatever comes next, I will face it, because the truth is out there, and I've seen it, and nothing, not the sky, not the universe, not even fear itself, will ever make me forget.